Welcome back to the For Love of Rugby. Coley, how are you, mate? We're back from Glasgow. Our European campaign is over. We are done. So therefore, we've had a training week, haven't we? But no fixture at the weekend apart from to watch on the telly.
We've been to Glasgow. We went up on our flight, which, can I say, was the hottest flight known to mankind.
They had a problem with the air conditioning when we left, and it was pumping out hot air, and it was like, you know, when Tyson Fury fought against
Klitschko,
that's right, and they did the interview, and he was like, he's in the sauna. He's like, I was willing to die in that sauna, and he's like, what are you on about? He's like, and it's like,
you got first mental victory.
So hot, and everyone
just
was
for the record,
sweating.
I was not prepared to die in that plane.
No one was prepared to die in that plane.
It was like you could fry an egg on the overhead lockers. There was a strip there, wasn't there? Which if you touched, you could touch for about 3 seconds and your hand burnt. So something went wrong. But anyway, thankfully, about half an hour into this flight, they were able to get the air conditioning working. And we did a bit of contrast recovery because it was cold outside, hot inside. Went to Glasgow, stayed in a hotel room, watched some rugby, played some rugby, came home, got home 2:30. All in all, not really a great day out, but a day out that happened.
Right, we've got a question from Gabriel. Hi lads, was at Glasgow and versus Tigers game and wanted to know if there are any sage insights to Coley's performance. I don't buy into the narrative. He gets through no work. Tackling machine.
Well, the sage insights, Gabriel, is the fact that obviously in the week, Glasgow decided to target the old fat slow guy, and they did that. So, we were actually laughing before the game about rugby league, and it was you, me, I can't remember what else was chatting about. We were saying rugby league, like they have, because you specific positions when you defend, basically stay in the same spot, and like you end up, some guys, they get targeted and they make like 60 tackles a game, and we're like, well, why don't they just move the bloke? Halfway through the game of the weekend, I was thinking, I need to move, because often I'm on the edge or just a couple in from the edge, and Glasgow are kind of like playing an 11 pattern in some regards, kind of going in a zigzag for the listener. And I seem to find myself on the edge getting zagged at. So, I don't know about the insights. Ultimately, I should have just gone to the open side. I should have just gone on the wing, really, go out of the way. There was a point 12 minutes into the game where I thought, I can't keep this up. You
were putting in a phenomenal shift. The team put in a lot of tackles. First half, strong wind, and they were just camped in our half. But Coley, you were getting through a bucket load of tackles. And we were laughing afterwards as well, saying that I wonder if Glasgow had someone bibbed up all week as a Dan Cole. So every time they thought about going around the same way, they saw that you'd reloaded on the short. So I said, we'll have it back on this side again and try and wear down the big bear. You did make one tackle, mate, that you dragged someone into touch, and which I stood up on the bench and said, that's my mate. What a guy.
He had a yard of space to beat me and he didn't do it. So
shame on him.
Yeah. You would say about the defence, they'd be bibbed up. Glasgow in the week being bibbed up, probably with a ball cap on, just to really make me stand out. That's the... Imagine the guy that has to do that. Like, can you be Dan Cole this week? Oh, for fuck's sakes. Like that. Go on, put the bib on and the ball cap. Go on.
Go on. It's like when we were preparing for New Zealand in 2019 and we had Genki in the squad, which is basically part of a Centauri, wasn't he? Yeah. And we had some members that would come in and help almost the numbers. We only had 2 9s at the World Cup. So he joined in, and during the New Zealand week, one of the S&Cs thought it'd be a funny idea to draw a moustache on him so he could be Aaron Smith.
Good old Genki. Yeah, that was we enjoyed that. I also enjoyed...
We did enjoy that.
I enjoyed sometimes running into opposition as a front rower when you play in France, and it's like the kick return battles, and it's just like all the French forwards just stand in the middle of the field, or they're definitely used to. So it was always a good week if you're on the bench to be like, oh yeah, I'll be the tight head of Bayonne, just walking around, and the coach is screaming at you like, you got to run. I'm like, hey, I'm doing my role here, mate. Fuck off.
I'm doing a great version of Ben Tamiafuna. Like, let me do my thing. I'm just going to stay in the middle.
I'm not carrying the ball. I'm just defensively, I'm Ben Tamiafuna. What can I say?
Run at me and I shall absolutely destroy you. But run anywhere left or right.
Someone else's job.
Talking of someone else's job, the parachuter that came in for the Toulouse game, he might not be doing that again. Maybe his role has now changed. But have you ever seen anything like that, mate? Coming down, game delayed because a parachute is being caught in the stands.
You laugh, but I was actually at, when I must have been about 10 years old, it was Aston Villa versus Arsenal at Aston Villa, and the parachutist came in at half-time dressed as Santa, but he hit the top of the stand and like fell off and collapsed in a heap on the floor. It was horrific, and everyone thought it was like laughing because it was like, oh, it's just a Santa doll, because I think a couple of landed on the pitch. Turned out it was a real bloke, and he was in hospital for a long time, and literally all the medics and stuff ran to him, so it was like, oh, everyone's like, and it was like, oh God, this is a real emergency. So that game got delayed. So yeah, I have seen that, which is why I've never been a massive fan of stunts such as parachutes coming into stadiums, because stuff like that, thankfully, I think the bloke is fine. The game was delayed by, was it half an hour? Basically the Toulouse fire brigade had to come out and get their ladder out and save him. But yeah, I'm all for pre-game entertainment, but unless it's a Boeing 747 flying over the stadium or an Airbus A380 flying over the stadium making a massive noise, or fighter jets like they have in America, I think nothing else should be coming out from the skies on days of rugby.
At what stage was he dangling and thinking, fuck me, this is really embarrassing?
Anywhere from the first 10 seconds when he realised that he was all right up until now. Probably still today, he's still worried about being embarrassed. So, yeah.
Another example, actually, Coley, of when a game was delayed was we played Newcastle. I think it was like round 3 in the Premiership this year, away. And at half-time, Newcastle were doing, Falcons were doing some sort of half-time entertainment, bit of fun with the fans, interactions, as so many clubs do. We'd left the change rooms, because we were both on the bench, to start our warm-up, get the bodies primed for when we might be needed in the second half. And they were doing a race, weren't they? And there was a stag do, and they were in fancy dress. And they had to sort of spin around in a circle and then run 100 metres, and the bloke collapsed.
I think they'd all had a skinful. They were running, and then one of the guys on the stag tackled him, and he fell over.
Oh, that's what he did. He tackled him.
Collapsed. I actually met them. They were Leicester fans. I actually played, the guy who tackled him I used to play junior rugby with. So I met him on the terrace the other day, and he's like, oh, I delayed your game. I'm like, thanks, mate. Shout out to him. And then, yeah, basically that delayed the game, because I think they also tried to drag him off because he'd like passed out, collapsed. They tried to drag him off, and then like, oh my God, he might have broken his neck. So we had to spend like 20 minutes with the ambulance and stuff, and everything got delayed, yeah. So that's happened to us. Thankfully, he was all right. He's fine, just for the record. Trying to think of any other weird times when the game's been delayed.
No, not a time where it's been delayed, but me and Andre Pollard were having a right laugh the other week about when we played South Africa in Cape Town. And the pre-game, I believe they're the Zulu Warriors, come out and sort of, but just before the box come out, I believe, or after the box come out. Anyway, they came charging out. It'd been pissing down with the rain all day, so Cape Town was like drenched, and they come flying out, and please watch it on YouTube, it's genius. They come flying out the tunnel, like literally pumped up. The guy's built like a tank, mate. Like comes charging out and absolute skids on the surface, like falls on his ass. The next one comes running out, does exactly the same. They all slip over about 5 or 6 times, like it's comedy gold. So the game wasn't delayed, but I remember we were under pressure at that point as an England team. We'd lost the first 2 tests against South Africa. The first game was in Johannesburg, and we'd sort of blown a big lead. And then that was a game we actually won that day. But when they came out, it was almost like you're in this sense of focus, and then that happens, and you're trying to not laugh and sort of thinking, hang on a minute, did I just see that correctly? And then the next one came flying out and skidded over, like it's genius.
Fair play, they bounced straight back up. They're straight back into the action, mate. They're fully invested.
They were very much invested, Coley, a bit like you in your role of acting that you seem to do with some of our clips that we've put up on socials, mate. You're like a method actor. You're into it, mate, and there's nothing that can distract you.
Daniel Day Cole, yeah, that's me.
Daniel Day
we should probably,
Cole.
This is a rugby podcast, so we should probably talk about some rugby.
Yeah, come on.
Sale, Toulouse, as we're on the, we are in Toulouse with the parachutist. Sale gave Toulouse a scare. So they were leading the first half, weren't they, before Toulouse came back. Unfortunately, Ange Kapowotso scored a worldy try. Seems to have broken his leg in the process, so hopefully he gets back fit. But yeah, it was that was one of the games of the weekend, I thought.
It's a hell of a try from him. It was. Sale are difficult team to play against, difficult team to beat, and Toulouse are some outfit. But they were pushing them, and like I say, at half-time had the lead, and then Toulouse kind of went through the gears a little bit. It was a bit, I mean, I'll tell you what else was bonkers. Saracens Toulon. I mean, that game was absolutely bonkers. When you think about how that ended up, Saracens were leading. I think they were 35 points, 34 at half time. And Toulouse, and then Toulon just come back. And by the end, it's like a rout. Imagine scoring sort of like nearly 40 points and still losing a game. It sort of seems bizarre, but there's been some blowout results actually, hasn't there? We've actually got a question from Jenny. Northampton are the only English team left in the Champions Cup. Does that mean you're going to be cheering Saints on?
Well, they're in my top 8 teams to cheer on. Yep. So in that regard, I will be cheering them on. But yeah, I think Toulouse is still my team that I enjoy most watching, and Bordeaux as well. They're going to be the 2 French teams. They'll probably be my number 1 and 2. I'm not going to lie to Jenny.
Yeah, Jenny, I'm not going to lie. Good to see Saints flying the flag for the English teams. I suspect that they'll beat Cast and they'll make the semi-finals. So it'll be a rematch of last year's semi-finals, of course, because I think Leinster will beat Glasgow. So good on them. They've got to fly the flag for the English teams. But I'm a bit like you, Coley. I mean, I've got a thing for Toulouse. Yeah, the way they play, the way they are. So they are probably my team that I'm sort of cheering on a little bit. But yeah, great to see Saints in the mix.
Toulouse have lost, obviously, Dupont. Capelozzo seems to be hurt. So Toulouse, it's an attritional. You'd hope that they still have great depth and great players all around. But you just hope the injury bug doesn't hit them and affect them too much, because those guys are obviously crucial to how they play and what they do.
I'll tell you who's been class once again for Saints is our mate, lover of the pod, Fremo.
Told you, he's some player. And when he gets the ball, things happen. So he's a great player.
I'm not sure whether it just coincides that when he came onto the pod, mate, that after that he just hasn't looked back.
He's definitely been a stage in his development. We'll take all credit for it, but I think he was pretty sure he was good beforehand.
Yeah, he was always going to be
Hence
very,
why he
very
came
good.
on the pod, because he was already good.
He is very, very good. Henry Pollock seems to be going from strength to strength, mate. So he's playing regularly, and you can see the strengths that he's got, which is great. Finn Smith, of course, finding his form again, just pulling the strings. Alex Mitchell. So I think Saints got a great opportunity. I think they'll beat Cast, and I think they've got a great shot at. And then Leinster is almost a free swing for them. Let's see. They obviously pushed them pretty hard last year. Can they take all those lessons and go there? So they'll get the job done this weekend, I believe, and good to see an English team going further in the tournament, because we look at the others, including ourselves, we are dust. Quins had a tough day against Leinster. I mean, Leinster showing their class, but at 62-0. And you do not see Quins not scoring tries very often, but Leinster looking very, very dominant.
We watched that game before ours, didn't we? But yeah, I think it was one of those things where Leinster went ahead early and Quins sort of, I don't think the score, Leinster were dominant, but how do I put it? Quins, I think, probably decided they were going to, they're running from their own half and stuff like that. Whereas if it's a tight game, you've seen Quins play different style in those kind of tight games. But I think because they went ahead early, Quins decided to just go out and play, and Leinster with their sort of blitz defence caught them off guard and attacked the breakdown, and scored points on the back of penalties, which is Leinster looking really good, put it that way.
Leinster looking very, very good. So we've got a question from Jack. Why are the Premiership teams struggling in Europe? No English finalists since the 2019-20 season when Exeter won it.
Partly, I would say something to do with the salary cap in regards to, you look at the French teams and how much they spend. That's tough. I think probably also priorities of English teams, because it's tough to win it. You then focus on the league because you've got to qualify in the league to qualify for Europe and that kind of stuff. And also, I think we're probably in a prime era of Toulouse are going to be, they're one of the best teams in probably club history, or in the history of the game club-wise. So you're going to struggle against them. La Rochelle have had, they've been really good for 2 or 3 years ago. So it's just, I think French rugby's, I think things sometimes come in waves, and obviously Saracens dominated Europe for several years. Now it's got the French terms. I think things will come back around at some point, but I just think sometimes these things go in secular. Is that the word?
Europe is just become incredibly difficult with the squad depth you have and the player pool. And, for instance, if you're not fully loaded, if you haven't got everyone available and you're going against these French teams or these top teams, it's bloody difficult. You also depends on what side of the draw you get. where do you end up? Like Saints, to be fair, obviously did a great job against Clermont, but they got cast in a knockout game, and like you'd snap someone's arm off to have them in a quarterfinal. To be honest with you, not disrespecting Cast, but when you look at the lineup, if you look at the other side of the pools and who you could meet, so it's a little bit of luck in terms of where you got to make your own luck, of course. They qualified and the way they did it in terms of getting those home advantages, but if you don't qualify at a high seed, if you don't qualify in a high seed, then you are on a bit of an uphill battle as an English team. So, for instance, just at the club alone, we've missed George Martin, Ollie Chesham for the last few weeks. Like they're international locks, and luckily we've got some depth, but you can't really replace those two type of guys. Well, you look at someone like a French team, they do have the ability to lose a few guys and replace them with the same sort of calibre.
It'd be interesting now the Premiership's down to 10 teams, obviously reduced sort of by 3 teams, whether it's harder to win Europe because almost you can't rest your players in Premiership games, and every fixture, because the Premiership is so sort of good and tight that you have to play your first team pretty much every game, and therefore Europe is kind of when you then rest your players in some regards, not rest players, but less of a focus, where when you had the bigger league, there was opportunities to rotate your squads, build depth, have probably bigger squads, and made Europe more of a priority. I don't know. I've just thought about that now that in some regards I think a smaller Premiership might hurt the actual teams. So you look at the European teams like Toulouse and stuff, because they play 14 games, they've probably got Van and other teams where they can rotate and rest their players because they can then gun for Europe, whereas like you've seen in the Premiership, because the Premiership's so tight, a bit like Sarries, is they played their England players in the Premiership rather than Europe, whereas the French teams probably can rotate a bit more.
Indeed, Coley. I like it. I like your view on things there.
Nice. We've got a question from Sonia. Ben, you left us on a cliffhanger a couple of weeks ago when you teased your rumoured move to Racing 92. Are you moving to France? And more importantly, have you got Coley some tickets to a gig in Paris?
Thank you, Sonia, for the question. Coley, I can get you a gig, mate. I can get you tickets for Paris. Read into that what you want. What show do you want to go see, mate?
Well, I'm just having a look at it, mate, right? If you could just hold off signing until they've actually got someone, or if you could just maybe if you are negotiating, keep negotiating, because I'm looking at the minute and Gazzo, Dua Lipa, Robbie Williams, Chris Brown, Kendrick Lamar, Post Malone, Hamza. There's nothing really up my street there, Ben. There's some obviously massive things, but no, there's nothing sport-wise. You got WWE. I won't be going to that.
Oh, hang on, Coley. I know you're saying you don't want any of those gigs, and I'm happy to use it as leverage. But what happens if Stone Cold Steve Austin makes a return in the Paris live show for WWE? Would you not want to be there for that? Surely you want to be there for that.
If you could get me to go out alongside him as like his body double, like...
Oh, now we're talking. Right, so if I go back to them and say, hang on, right, these are the terms and conditions. I'm happy with everything. However...
Stone Cold Steve Austin has to come back to WWE.
Stone Cold Steve Austin has to come back and he has to walk out.
And Coley has to walk out alongside him in exactly the same setup and gear. And I've also got the walk, because I'm that stiff and like nowadays after a game, we'll just walk down together. And then you can sign there, mate. If that happens, everything's on, mate.
Everything's on, right? That is my leverage. I shall discuss this and get the terms and conditions finalised, especially regarding the live show, because I along with all our listeners want to see you strut your stuff with Stone Cold Steve Austin in the arena.
Or maybe Stone Cold wants to do it with me, and then therefore you're going to have to go to like France for 2 years or 3 years or 10 years, basically. So the people there's such a movement wanting me to walk out with Stone Cold that next thing they'll be like, we can do that, but then you have to sign your life away.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Coley, I love that idea. Look, just for the listeners, I've not made any decisions yet. So once I know what I'm doing, Sonia, you, along with everyone else, will know exactly what's happening with myself next season. But for now, it's given me a little bit of an idea there, Coley, just to see whether we can chuck that in the hat. But yeah, everyone will find out soon enough. To finish off our European chat, Coley, Dan Biggar has announced his retirement. So, a few words on him, please, mate.
He's been a great servant for Welsh rugby, and well, he's obviously gone well at Toulon and Northampton and stuff like that, but he's a hell of a player. I think he'll be missed. I think he's it's kind of sad in a regard, Ben, because it's like the golden era that we sort of played in of like him, Sexton, like sort of, not say Farrell's still playing, but he's in France, so it's a bit quieter, but like that golden era of tens in the sort of Six Nations is the door is closing on it. And I thought Biggar was a brilliant player. He made Wales so much better. The way he played the game, the competitor he was, and he'll be missed in the world of rugby.
I agree, mate. An outstanding 10, an outstanding servant to Welsh rugby, to rugby in general, all the clubs he's played for. I actually remember playing against Biggs at England 16s against Wales, and he was very, very good then. And I just think, someone like that he should be treasured. Like, he generally should be treasured in terms of the Welsh. I'm sure he is, but he should be. Like, he should go down as one of the great tens that they've produced and had. I think he's been terrific. He's a hugely competitive Biggs. Like, gives it plenty. Like, on the pitch, he's into everything. Like moaning and everything because he's competitive and everything like that. But I say, congratulations on a hell of a career. I'm sure he'll be looking to end it on a high one with Toulon at the end of the season. But you say, Coley, like another one of that sort of golden generation, a fantastic fly half that I'm sure, and rightly so, will be remembered for many, many years beyond the end of this season for all the great things he did in a Welsh shirt.
I certainly hope so, Ben. Right, let's go to the ads. This episode is brought to you by Thriva. You get 20% off your first blood test if you use the code LOVERRUGBY. The link is in the episode description.
Coley, my Thriva blood test is still being processed, but I do believe yours has been processed and you've got the results from your Thriva blood test. So where are they at, mate?
Yes, I have my results. You'll be glad to know my cholesterol is moving in the right direction. So I'm happy. The areas that were flagged previously on my report, like my triglyceride to HDL ratio, is coming down, Ben. So it's now I'm in the optimal region now, whereas previously I was high. So still got a bit of work to do on my LDL cholesterol, but no, I'm happy. It's on the previous blood test, we've had some, made some changes, and they seem to be paying off. So it's good.
So like us, Coley, and you're listening and you want to make informed decisions about your lifestyle and where your general health is, go to Thriva. And you can get the link on our episode description and simply use the code LOVEOFRUGBY and you'll get 20% off your first blood test.
Those were the ads. Ben, this weekend the Women's Six Nations returns. England face Ireland in Cork, which has probably been their toughest game so far. What have you made of England so far?
I've enjoyed it, like Coley. We actually had John Mitchell on. Fantastic episode. If you haven't listened to it, please do. When I think of some of the guests we've had, he's honestly probably one of my favourites. He's that insightful and very, very good. But England so far, mate, dominant. You look at the Red Roses, very dominant, very powerful, looking good. I think that they've changed the team a couple of times, Coley, we've noticed. And they've also the styles, which let's touch on in terms of what we've noticed of that, because it's interesting because Mitch kind of touched on this himself, didn't he? But England's first game, of course, against Italy was a very different team that they put out against Wales, and almost the styles were almost different as well. But there is thought and reason behind that. Yeah,
well, I won't spoil the Mitch episode, but he talks about building that depth, because obviously it's going to be hard to go in a World Cup, basically 7 or 8 games with the same team straight through. So he's obviously trying to build 2 different teams and almost a style of play. I thought that some of the bits and bobs where we talk about, we talk on this podcast a lot about having 3 runners off of 9 in that arrowhead shape, whereas actually the movement we've seen with France and teams in the Six Nations is 4, and actually the Red Roses are playing, at times they're playing that 4-person shape off 9, which is really interesting to see and shows how they're pretty much, they're on the bubble of trends that are happening in our game, which is great to see.
It is fantastic to see. And I think what the other thing as well with the amount of change they keep making to the team is, 1, it shows the absolute trust that Mitch has within the Red Roses that anyone can slot in. 2, everyone's going to get a proper crack at trying to force their way into what is deemed the strongest Red Roses team ahead of the World Cup. And 3, it just adds competitive edge to training, to the way that you're doing things, and everyone has to raise their game. Like if you're not sure, like if you're playing week in, week out, like, oh, someone else goes in, if they perform and everything like that. So I think that I suppose competitive, that depth that he's building. Like Mitch is a smart guy. I say, like, I really encourage people, if you enjoy our show, please listen to that one because it is a cracker. He's very insightful what he talks about. With
this round of the tournament coming up, should we give some sage insights on players to look out for from the different teams this weekend?
I encourage you, if you're a rugby fan and maybe you haven't watched the women's game before, watch this weekend. So we'll give a little sage insight into who to keep an eye out this weekend. Let's start with England versus Ireland.
All right, okay. The player from Ireland I think you should look out for is Aoife Wafer. Plays in the back row. Her numbers have been pretty great so far in the tournament. She's had 8 defenders beaten. She's had 34 carries, which is first. 183 metres carried, which is fourth. 3 offloads, which is second, and 3 breakdown steals, which is joint first. So, yeah, all round, a great player.
Yeah, she'll be leading it from the front is important because the Red Roses pack is extremely dominant. And actually, if you flip over to England, it, of course, has to be Ellie Kildunn, who scored a hat-trick in the previous game against Wales, World Player of the Year. So if you listen to our interview, actually, with Ant Watson, that's another cracker to listen to. But the fantastic insight and how they both see the game and how they view it. But she has been electric. So I suspect if you want to keep an eye on one player, then Ellie Kildunn will light it up once again.
France also play Wales, Ben. So have you got anyone to look out for there?
I would say Jasmine Joyce from Wales, Coley. She got a bit of stick, actually, after the England game, unfairly. But you can see that she brings a lot of energy. But on the pitch, she's made 181 metres. Like, she's beaten 4 defenders and made 2 breakdown steals. So impressive for a struggling Welsh side. But she's been playing fullback, can play wing. She's someone definitely to look out for.
And for France, you need to watch out for 2 sisters, Manet and Tiani Feilu. Manet is the older sister and captain of France. She's made 25 tackles so far, 2 breakdown steals and a couple of line-up steals. Her sister, who actually comes from a sevens background, has 17 carries, 96 metres made, and 12 tackles in France's win over Scotland. So they're both really dynamic and going to be good to watch.
Which leads us on nicely to last game, which of course is Scotland versus Italy. And from Scotland, the one to look out for is Fran McGee. Of course, she was at Leicester Tigers women's team. Very impressive winger. She's made 195 metres so far, and she's also made 6 line breaks, which is more than anyone else after 2 rounds. She actually is very, very box office. So keep your eyes on Fran McGee. She will entertain you for sure.
And from Italy, Giordana Duca is a tackling machine. The Sage Insights say she's leading the charge with 45 tackles made, which is 11 more than anyone else in the tournament so far.
Well, there we go. So there's some players to look out for. I chose 3 backs, Coley, and you chose 3 forwards. Who would have thought it? So if you're watching this weekend, look out for them.
Technically 4 forwards.
Well, yeah, to be fair, you did, because it was actually 1, but sisters, they come in a pair, so I'll let you off on that.
In other rugby news this week, Ben, the Worcester Warriors, or Worcester Rugby, are back.
They are back, mate.
They're going into the newly formed Championship next year. So they've been gone straight in there. Is that fair, do you think? Do you think they should work their way up, or do you reckon they should go straight in at that level?
No, I think they should go straight back into that level. Like, they got the foundations, the stadium, they got everything there. It was really, really sad to see what happened there. But great to see the news that they're going to be starting up again. So I don't think that they should start at the bottom at all. I think they should integrate where they are. And then I'm sure that they'll be desperate to get themselves back in. And actually, if you think of like the Worcester players that have played and could return, and I'm going to read you out some of these names, like they could decent in the Prem if you slotted them all back in. So Ted Hill, Ollie Lawrence, Seb Atkinson, Dewey van der Merwe, Jamie Shilcott, Finn Smith, Curtis Langdon, Joe Batley, and Rory Sutherland. It's pretty impressive, really.
Oh yeah, Worcester have always had good players.
They've always had decent, big names
good
as well.
Academy players as well, good guys coming through.
They have.
So yeah, no, I'm glad that Worcester are coming back, because they had a committed fan base, put it that way, and they're their own home ground. I think a rugby purpose stadium, that kind of stuff, which is the other couple of teams that unfortunately disappeared. They're a bit sort of nomadic, whereas I think Worcester had that base, and it was there's actually a big sort of rugby fan base around there, and I think it's good for rugby in general to have just, let's say, good rugby clubs based around, you know, their own stadiums and their own communities. And so hopefully, yeah, Worcester will be, you know, can build that up. And you say, look at the guys that come through our academy. Like, so when we played, they're brilliant players. And yeah, we've had a lot of, like, Graham Kitch this world have played for us, haven't they? Leicester Tigers played sort of 100 a game for the club, and I think 200 games. But yeah, no, they're great players throughout the system.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed playing at Worcester, as you say, Coley. Really good fan base, Once they sorted out the pitch, they got the 4G in there, because it used to be an absolute bog back in the day. But like, location-wise, great. And I think great fan base. So I'm pleased, because there'll be a lot of fans that, you know, have probably had to travel elsewhere to watch their rugby, or maybe just haven't now. So the fact that they're going to get it back on their doorstep is great. So delighted to see that happening. It's the other thing that I'm delighted to see that's happening, Coley, is less than a week away until our Lions draft. And we can announce our lineup as you, me, Ant Watson, and Squidge. Obviously,
we're Ant, the reigning champion. We've got the Squidge, whose rugby knowledge knows no bounds. He's also, I'm sure his brother will be in attendance, so we have to make sure there's no, like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style coughing from the audience to make sure he gets the right picks.
That's true.
We're on to your Squidge. But I think, the draft is looking lively, getting exciting. The Lions is building, isn't it? I think, back of Europe, some great standout performances. The momentum is rolling. So, have you got any tactics you're going to use in your drafting system?
I was ultimately let down last year by the listeners when it came to the vote, that they didn't back me. They didn't back the Triple R bastards. So I've got no tactics, and if I did, I wouldn't be sharing them. But yeah, I'm confident that I will select a fantastic team. But the Lions is building, and as you say, Coley, with the European knockout games, like, we're coming to the latter end of the season. The announcement, of course, is the 8th of May. Or the coaching staff's been announced. We're doing the drafts. Everyone's going to be Lions mad by the time it finally starts.
Yeah. Who do you reckon is going to be first pick in the draft?
I think it will be either Maro or Caelan Doris. I'd say it'll be the first picks.
Going captaincy material, yeah.
I think so.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you would say the premium position is somewhere like 9 or 10.
I was about to say 9 or 10, because Gibson Park is probably, well, most likely, certainly in my opinion, the 9. So they could be premium.
But then you go 10, but then also I think the amount of 10s that are good 10s out there, like, yeah, it'll be interesting. I reckon there's 4. I reckon between like Marcus Smith, Finn Russell, and Prendergast, and even Crowley, so like that, like, there is enough 10s to cover 4 teams. So yeah, it's going to be, we have to do some research and find out the spots where there might be a shortage of players.
I might go back row again first. I just might load up my back row, get them all in. Who knows? It'll come to me in the night, Coley. And there's actually still a few tickets available, only a few. It's Wednesday, 16th of April at the Clapham Grand. Link is in the episode description to all our live shows that are coming up.
I have written a survey and I've sent it out to the listeners, the THBs, and they've responded.
Interesting. Right. So what are they? You just done a survey because we want to get better.
Yeah, it wasn't just like who's better looking, me or you. It's actually
like
related to the pod, mate.
Interesting. What do we get back?
Well, I asked them, what do you like about the show? People who really enjoy the good mixture of analysis and chatting bollocks. How we make the game easier to understand for people who are new to the game. Greg Bateman stories, and also our new hosts, Shauna, Sadia, and Maud.
Good feedback. All positive.
I did ask for some ways to improve the show. I think your mum may have responded when she said less swearing. So, that came from Mrs. Youngs.
Yeah, sorry, Mum.
There was a recommendation that you do 10 press-ups every time you say mate.
No, mate.
That could actually be someone trying to help you out getting leaner.
No, mate. Absolutely not, mate. Do I say mate that often? Never really noticed it, mate.
Imagine how big your chest would be.
Imagine how...
I think you play rugby, you couldn't catch, mate. You couldn't be able to pass. Your chest would be like...
Mate, I don't need to be doing 10 press-ups every time I say mate. I've got a Thriva blood test. I know exactly where my health markers are at.
Can you do 10 press-ups?
Tell you what, talking of 10 press-ups, right, that's Michael Checker, to be fair. It was one team he suddenly, I can't remember why he made himself do it, but he's like, I'm going to do 10 press-ups.
I think he felt like he was on a health kick when he's like, oh yeah, I feel really good. And he's like, yeah, I'll show you. And he did someone's like, do 10 press-ups. He did. He did, fair play, he did 10 press-ups. But then he was like, he started talking and he's like, fucking hell, mate, I think I'm out of breath here. He threw it to one of the other assistant coaches, didn't he? It's like, Pete, you're going to have to talk for a few minutes, mate.
He had to go get his breathing back, right? Started doing some Wim Hof in the corner, mate, because he's so out of sync after pounding 10 press-ups out. Okay, what else? What other bits have we got?
Areas to improve the show included a George Ford and Squidge Rugby brain-off.
I like that idea.
And or fight.
Who'd win that, do you reckon? Squidge is the oracle. But he's like the oracle of... Squidge is the oracle of like rugby knowledge in terms of like
the history of the game.
Yeah, stats on players, and like when they're like the tallest players ever played, and he just knew it straight away and all that. And I say George is the oracle at like game understanding of like why things happen, what you could do, tactics. Although Squidge is very good as well. I think rugby knowledge is Squidge in terms of like question answer, like who did this, who made their debut on this date. And in terms of rugby tactical knowledge, Fordy's the oracle.
There's also a recommendation we should get more guests from different nations.
Guests from different nations. Okay, leave that with me. I actually do message a few lads from different nations, and leave that with me. But, well, you know, they have to meet a certain criteria to come on the show. And, you know, they have to be available. We have to be available. Not everyone's up for it as well. You've got to bear that in mind. Not everyone actually wants to do it. So, but look, leave it with us. We'd love to chat with as many stars as possible from other nations. And it's not always easy to do, but we'll work on it. So leave it with me.
Someone wrote, let Freddie Stewart and Freddie Burns come on the pod so they can give it back after all your abuse.
I wouldn't say we abuse them. I'd say we just have a laugh.
Yeah. But if they were to say anything witty against us, we get the producers to take it out. So, yeah, I'm all for it. Oh, there's another episode. This is quite a good episode. Record an episode drunk.
Oh, that would be amusing.
Is it Drunk Histories, where they basically get a team, they get a comedian drunk, and they basically have to then recite what happened in a historical period, like the War of the Roses or something like that. And yeah, we should do that, but just do it with an opposition player. We should get Joe Marler on and just get drunk with him.
Maybe we should just do a live show or live recording on a team social. Like, that would be chaotically, carnagely brilliant, if that's even a word or a phrase. But you think like everyone's in the room on it anyway as a team, and they just can grab the mic at any point and just start rattling off what they want to talk about.
But do you reckon it'll be like just the same thing over, like, you know, when you get stuck with someone and you have the same conversation 4 times in one night, and you're like, pretty sure I've had this conversation before. That might just be the podcast to be like, I'm pretty sure I've heard this before. But it just becomes slightly more dribbly and drawn out.
Anything else, Coley?
Actually, Ben, the final one said nothing. You can't improve on perfection.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. Did you do that one?
I can't possibly say. We've also had someone on the form. Would like to ask if they can have your Aaron Smith jersey.
No.
Okay. However, if anyone else would like to add to our survey, which gives us feedback, it's great for us. The link is in the episode description down below. So please, if you're listening or watching, send in some thoughts. Good and bad. We can all take feedback.
Absolutely, Coley. Well done, mate. Another cracking episode. Thanks for Sage for all their insights. Thanks for everyone for your feedback. We will try and get some of those done, especially getting Burnsy on, especially trying to get some guests from different nations and maybe the Squidge versus Fordy. I like the idea of them battling it out in Rome, like when I was going to fill him in that time. So maybe we can do that instead. And we'll be back on Saturday, exclusively on our YouTube channel with a video with Alona Ma.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.